Hello Year 3 and 4! Welcome to the second of our sessions this week, looking at the Beasties story. So today we're going to innovate a story. That means we're going to make it our own. We're going to change it and hopefully improve it. So to help us do that, we look at the pattern of the story. Okay, and as we've talked about last week, the stories that the Beasties tell have a beautiful pattern to them, okay, and that structure is going to help us with our writing. So I'm going to start by looking at, and actually let's just look at Ferdinand's story. Ferdinand's story is about a ring. That's his object. And in that story it says this ring belonged to a faraway king. We have our character Ferdinand talking in a growly voice. So we find out who that object belonged to, and we introduce their beastie and we describe their voice. So we have their name and the type of voice they're speaking in. Ferdinand guarded the king's treasures, so we find out what job the beastie has. Then robbers came to steal the treasures. That's when something terrible happens in the beastie's story. Ferdinand terrified them away. He leapt, he roared, he breathed fire, and he flashed his razor-sharp teeth. Okay, so we get a real sense about Ferdinand's character. So that part of the pattern is how the beastie saves the day, or is saved in some of the stories. So here we've got a character description of your beastie's best qualities. Okay. And then at the end, Ferdinand was given the ring for his bravery. Okay, so we need to know why the object or the gift was given. Now, some people find it easy to look at this pattern split into sections on a grid like this. Other people would like to look at questions to help them think. So we need to know, what is your beastie called? How can you describe their voice? What was your beastie's job? What terrible thing happened? How did your beastie save the day? And why was the beastie given the object or gift? So we need to answer each of those questions. And when I sat down with Hazel, I showed her a leaf that I wanted to be the special object. And I actually found it really quite tricky to come up with a story that had good answers for all of these questions. So I had to change the object that I was writing about. And you might find the same thing, and that's okay. So start with an object you think would be good to write about. It might be a ring or a button or a shell or a feather, like in the beastie story, or it might be something different, something just ordinary that's laying around. So I think I'm going to use a comb to help me start off my story. Okay, so the example I'm using is going to be a comb. So I'll say, oops, I'll say this comb belonged to, oh, who could it belong to? The Unicorn King. Okay, so that's, we've got the object, the comb, and who it belonged to, the Unicorn King. And what is my beastie going to be called? I'm going to call my beastie Kika. And what kind of voice is Kika going to have? A twinkling voice. Okay. So this comb belonged to the Unicorn King, said Kika in a twinkling voice. And what job did the beastie have? What was Kika's job? I used to keep the rainbows in his hair. Okay, it could be anything you like. Oh. So something terrible happens. Suddenly, what could happen to Kika? If the sun stopped shining, there would be no rainbows. The clouds covered the sun. And what did Kika do? Kika might have danced, bounced, and swayed, and say something about Kika's character, because we know Ferdinand had razor sharp teeth. Dance, swayed, danced them away, bounced, swayed, and blew. With fierce breath. Okay, so I think I'm starting to imagine Kika might be some sort of a little dragon to have fierce breath. And the Unicorn King, he gave me this comb. For my energy. Okay, so I have filled out the key elements of the story, and that's in answer to the key questions. It just doesn't write the story, so I do not want you to write the story today, but it just gives you the answers to these key questions, which I'll post on the assignment. If you want some ideas about what objects will be useful to you, you might use some of these nouns like wizard, unicorn, rainbow, sky, king, villagers, spell, clouds, trees, fortress, birds. They might be good nouns to include in your story. Okay, so today you are just filling in what we call our boxing up grid with notes on our story outline. Fantastic. I look forward to seeing them.